forgiveness is an instruction and you should forgive, but reconciliation is not an obligation. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of It's That Deep podcast. I feel like I just rapped, but I hope you're well. I hope you're feeling good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling calm. I have my cute drink here. I don't know if you guys, have I ever shown this on camera? If you're listening, it's a cup and it's That Deep branded cup. It's so cute, but I just have my puppy here. Okay, so today's episode, we're talking about reconciliation. When I think about reconciliation, for some weird reason, what comes to mind, firstly, is Nollywood. And stay with me, okay? I like watching Nollywood movies. And in every sense, I think it's a way for me to connect back to like home and whatnot. However, when I think of reconciliation, what comes to mind is the annoyance that I get when I watch some movies, especially in Nollywood, where the idea of reconciliation and forgiveness always meaning the same thing. It kind of just made me think of how sometimes we look at reconciliation in a very toxic way and as some sort of obligation as opposed to a decision that you have to make on your own without feeling obligated to do it. So anyway, that was a random thought and it has been on my mind lately. I think I touched on it on Instagram like months ago, but I wanted to kind of dive into it a little bit more, especially when it comes to friendship, right? One of the things I like to say is, or questions I like to ask is reconciliation possible in friendships? That is a big thing that, I've had conversations around with my friends and it's something that just came to mind. So it's probably going to be a title of this episode, okay? Sometimes we kind of struggle with the breakups in friendships and like situations that come up and also kind of questioning our idea of what reconciliation can look like in that relationship moving forward. So when it comes to the question, is reconciliation possible in friendships? I think it is less about the possibility and more about the why. Why, in quote, is something that a lot of people struggle with asking themselves and also just being truthful about. The more you get comfortable asking yourself why you do certain things or why you think a certain way or why you feel obligated to do something or why you feel a sense of guilt, I think the less you feel that struggle with the decisions that you're making, but the more comfortable you feel with yourself, with the relationship that you're building with yourself and in the relationships that you have with the people around you, right? I've had times where I fought so hard to reconcile with people that I just needed to let go. In order for me to grow, they needed to go. And because I felt like I wasn't in a position where I was going to make better friends, I felt like there was no friendship that was going to be better than the friendship that I was struggling to let go of, or because I felt like the history that we had was too rich to let it go. And reconciliation in my mind we had to come back as friends the way we were. It had to be the same way we would banter, the same way we would share like really intimate, vulnerable moments, the same way I would share really personal information. I felt like if I was reconciling with someone, it had to be in the same capacity. And I think that looking back now, I was more operating from a place of scarcity and just not necessarily asking myself why. It just felt like a given. So I don't know if you guys have seen that TikTok where, I don't know if it's a TikTok actually. I think I saw it on Instagram, but this girl was asking her pastor or something, like, how many times can I forgive or how many times can I go back to my friend or something like that? And the pastor was like, how many times can they kill you before you die? I don't know. I'm going to put the link. If I find it, I'm going to put the link to it in the show notes so that you guys can go and watch it. We know that reconciliation can not happen without forgiveness, I guess. Like, you have to forgive in order to reconcile. And most of the time, forgiveness is an instruction. God has asked us to forgive over and over again, 70 times 7 times. And it serves you to forgive. It frees you to forgive. It is one of the most freeing things you can do because it sets you free from that offense, the spirit of offense, spirit of anger and all of that. And it allows you to see the purpose in the pain and also how or what ways God is asking you to move forward, right? So God has asked us to forgive, but I'm correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I'm learning, but I don't see anywhere where God is literally forcing you to reconcile in the same capacity. So we sometimes confuse forgiveness with reconciliation. Forgiveness is an instruction and you should forgive, but reconciliation is not an obligation. Okay. And so bringing it into our conversations with Christ, right? Into my conversations with Christ, I've struggled with it in the past because I felt like I was surrounded by people that kind of made me feel like I'm a Christian. And so why can't I just get back and move on, get back to the way we were, even if it was a family member that hurt me or something. And I would kind of have this identity crisis in my relationship with Christ where I'm asking myself if I'm a bad person just because I don't necessarily desire to get back to the same place that we were, regardless of how sorry that person was or regardless of how, I don't know, I guess eager that person was to be better or to do better. I wanted to come into that decision by myself and not out of obligation. And I used to kind of just struggle with it so much. I'll pray about it. My God, am I mean? Am I a wicked person and whatnot? And, slowly the Holy Spirit has really just been helping me understand that boundaries are healthy. I mean, healthy boundaries are there for a reason. And when you relate boundaries to reconciliation, I think the more you learn about how both of them exist and the different dynamics in which they exist, you gain better understanding of how you want to incorporate them in your life, So in your walk with Christ, sometimes boundaries can be very confusing. And you know what? I think boundaries are even like a different topic on its own, but there are times where people know where you stand with Christ. People can, as much as possible, we hope that people can see where you stand with Christ and your behavior reflects that. And I think sometimes there's room for manipulation there where people expect you to act in a very, predicted way, in a way. I don't know if I'm using the right word. So I always encourage people to question the idea of reconciliation and what that looks like. It doesn't always mean going back to the same dynamic that you had prior to whatever affected that friendship or affected that relationship in the first place. And I think that sometimes, you could reconcile in a different way. You could reconcile with a better knowledge of how you want to exist in that relationship or in that friendship moving forward, and what you are willing to share, what kind of boundaries you're going to implement. And you can also reconcile in a way that you have a stronger bond with that friend. I've had friends where we kind of grew apart and we came back and we are even closer, and the only way that could have happened is that there was desire on both ends, but there was also acknowledgement and conversations and hard conversations, but also if there was any need for apologies or any form of interaction and conversation around what happened, we had that and we were able to actually be vulnerable and see how we could, become closer or be better. And I don't think it's something that is forced. It's not out of obligation. It's just it happens and you become way closer. So that's possible. And that's what I'm saying. We need to question how we look at reconciliation, because it can happen in so many ways. It can happen in a way where you guys need some space, but you are fine. And reconciliation is not always closeness. It's not always chumminess. It's that you are fine, you hold no anger towards that person, you're forgiving that person, you are able to exist in the same space as that person. There's no enmity and you guys are cordial, but also you guys are existing in a friendship, okay? But it is not, again, an obligation. And I also think other times you have every right to say, I don't want this person in my life anymore in that capacity. I want us to just be strangers. That's fine. I've forgiven you, you've forgiven me, thank you. And again, unfortunately, you can be on the receiving end of this, where you do something, we're not perfect, you do something and there's just, I guess the person just doesn't see a way that you guys can reconcile in any way or be in each other's lives in any way. And that has to be okay. So you understanding that you've apologized, you guys have had that conversation and you are forgiving, which is something that you should always pray for. I say it all the time that one of the best prayers is that you pray that you do not hurt someone that cannot forgive you, and that wherever you are, that God will lead you to places where people have a forgiving spirit, because it's very important. But in the midst of that forgiveness, and while you are forgiving, it doesn't always mean that you would reconcile with that person. And that's something that you just have to kind of grieve and accept in whatever way that happens, right? Your constant need for reconciliation, right, might be rooted in selfishness, in people pleasing, your lack of boundaries, your scarcity mindset, your lack of self-respect, and less about being a good person. I know sometimes when we want to reconcile and whatnot, we, in our brains, we're telling ourselves, the story you're telling yourself is that, oh yeah, I'm a good person. I just want to make sure that I'm good with everyone. I'm fine with everyone. Like, I don't want to have to cut people off or kind of stop being in contact with my friends. I just feel like, I'm such a forgiving person. So, even though they've done this, even though they've slept with my husband, we can still be friends. And I think that's where you need to ask yourself, obviously, please wait. First of all, I don't have to give extreme examples, okay? But you know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes we, without prayer, without having that conversation with Christ and asking God, like, does this person even need to be in my life? We end up just like, yeah, we pride ourselves in being so forgiving, but we also pride ourselves in lacking boundaries, in not being able to say no. And so we're like, even though this person has done this, I just, I don't hold it, I understand. So this person is just in my life and we're still friends. And, a lot of women say that so like proudly. And there's not really any change in the other person's behavior or in your behavior. There's no acknowledgement of why we got there in the first place or how we got there in the first place and what change can look like or what growth can look like, what evolvement can look like, So that's where I'm getting at. Understanding that you don't have to put yourself in a dangerous situation because you feel obligated to reconcile. Okay. It's also constantly praying for a heart that mirrors the person that God wants you to be. I think it's also asking yourself in what ways can you be a decent person after reconciliation or through reconciliation without holding a grudge, without feeling entitled? God does not forgive us and come back into our lives to hold it over our head and say, oh, you can't do this because I did this for you and I've forgiven you. It's just more like it's out of love. It is not anything based off of like, oh yeah, activity. I'm a Christian and I need to reconcile. I feel like I rapped through this episode, but I hope it was helpful. My favorite thing for this week, I'm going to show you. I have my puppy here with me. Like I said, I do like a good puppy, and I drink this and sparkling water most of the time. And sometimes I can't just finish a can. I can't finish a can. Okay. Also, I digress, but have you guys seen this big can of puppy? Like, this is new. I just found this 2 weeks ago and I love it. I love it so much. But even when it was a smaller can, I couldn't finish one can at a go. So most of the time I like to keep my cans, and I found these can covers. So this is what they look like. It is just, it's like I got, like, it's a set of 4 and I have 2 colors here with me. It's so cute. The pink is so cute. Anyway, so what this basically does, and it fits most of the cans. So if you like carbonated water, you like poppy, you like any like whatever soda, this fits most of it. And I guess if you drink beer as well, because I know some guys listen to this, and some ladies drink beer, my friends drink beer. Okay, what I do is just use this to like basically preserve my drink in the fridge, because I don't like pouring out my drink if I'm not like drinking everything. So because I like to drink in like a cup like this. I love a good cup and straw. So when I'm taking half of this, I've always kind of struggled with keeping it just like that, or trying to look for something to cover it, and keeping like it's just always like felt like a hassle. So I randomly found this on Amazon and I've been loving it. So you basically just clip it on. It's quite easy and you can drink through it like this. So most of the time I think people use it when they go camping or they go like to the beach or something, but I use it in my house. This has just been like one of my favorite things that I've been enjoying. If you guys are interested, you can shop. The link is in the description or show notes below. But yeah, tell me what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.